All right. I think we're going live. I think we're live now. I think everything's working. We got the camera working. I can see myself, so I'm assuming that's working just fine. I think the microphone's working fine because I remembered to plug it in. We're on a roll. It's like 2 or 3 broadcasts in a row. I've remembered to plug everything in and got everything going. Let me get disclaimers out of the way. We'll jump right into it. This is a weekly live broadcast pretty much every Thursday. Sometimes things get in the way, but pretty much every Thursday, 8 o'clock. That's what time we're doing that now, 8 o'clock Central. This is where I'm at. We go for about an hour, and I do my best to respond to all the chat that comes in during the live chat itself, not the comments on the video necessarily, but the actual live, the chat that goes on during the live broadcast. So if you've had a hard time getting me to respond to a comment, I haven't been very good about that lately. I'm sorry. This is your best place to get an answer. You can come here and ask your questions. I pretty much respond to every single one of them, unless you're talking to each other. If you guys are having your own conversations, that's fine with me too. But I don't tend to respond to those. I just kind of skip over them, and because we have so many chats coming through, it's hard for me to keep up with them as it is. And the only things, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. The only things I ask is be polite, keep it family friendly, don't be hateful with anybody. I got to scoot over a little bit. I feel like I'm over to one side here a little bit, but don't be hateful with anybody. Don't start cussing anybody. We don't want to have to kick you out. But other than that, it's all pretty much fair game. So let's jump into it. We got Ed Got Bait here, says, good evening, everyone. Hope all is well. Chris, it is well. Thank you. Says, see you at QuailCon. Yeah, that's coming up. We know how much longer. I'll see you there. Don from South Central Illinois. Good to see you. S.O. Swanson says, 44 days to QuailCon and a live performance by Chris. Yeah. Yeah, indeed. I'll be there. I'm going to be a speaker at one of the speakers there anyway. Andy Rabbit, good to see you. I'm doing well. Hopefully you are too. We got Verna from Bay's Place here. Says, evening, Chris, Ed, Don, and cousin Andy. Good evening to you too. And then we got Daryl from South Carolina. There we go. Let me read that correctly. Scrap 5000 says, what's up, everybody? Greeting from New York City. Smash the like button. We got 9 likes so far, so we're doing pretty good. We've only been going for just a couple of minutes. All right, lots of hellos to everybody in the group. And then Jennifer, good to see you. And Tony from Toronto, good to see you. And Buster says hello to everyone. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. We got Ann Jones from Louisiana here. Solo FX wants to know, where is QuailCon? QuailCon is in, hang on a second. I think I just got something came through my phone. Oh, it did, but it was just the notification that I'm live. QuailCon is in Miamisburg, Ohio, and it is Labor Day weekend. So that'll be September 2nd and 3rd, I believe, is the dates. Let me double check that and make sure I got that right, because 2nd and 3rd, September 2nd and 3rd. It's at My Shire Farm in Miamisburg, Ohio. Amy says, hey, they're from Connecticut. I can't seem to find organic quail feed in my area. The one I used was discontinued. Any ideas? Oh, good question. I don't know. I never worry about whether it's organic or not myself, so I don't really know where you can find organic food, organic quail food. Seems like, to me, organic is just kind of a way to say we're going to charge you twice as much for it. But no, I'm just kidding, kind of. But yeah, there's a difference between here. Let me grab a drink here. I think there is a difference between like organic and GMO and non-GMO. And most of the feed, I don't even know if the feed I use is non-GMO. I don't really worry about it too terribly much, but I would prefer to have a non-GMO feed over a GMO feed, but I don't really worry about whether it's organic or not, in my opinion. So I don't know where you can get organic feed. I'm sorry. We'll see if somebody else has a suggestion here. I don't know that there's any. Yeah. I don't know if there's anybody in the comments that will have a good suggestion for you or not. We'll see as we go along. Maybe somebody. A lot of times when I can't answer a question, somebody in the chat can. So we'll see. Amy, I already read that one. Daryl says, let's see. I'm new and starting to build my cages. How many breeding groups do you keep in one cage? Your channel and really flattened out my learning curve. Your channel really flattened out my learning curve. There we go. So, I mean, it just depends. It's however many you want. I mean, I don't keep, you said how many breeding groups. I don't necessarily keep, when you're keeping them all in one cage, it's not really breeding groups. It's just one big group of birds. You know, all the roosters are going to mate with all the hens. I mean, there's just going to be a mix. So it's really just however many birds you want to keep in the hutch. I mean, it's, you know, figure at the most, you probably want to keep them at about 1 bird per square foot. You could get a little bit denser than that, but that's a pretty good average, 1 bird per square foot. You don't have to go anywhere near that dense if you don't want to. So let's say that you've got a 24 square foot, you know, floor plan cage. You could keep 24 birds in there. You need 1 rooster for every about 5 to 6 hens. And if you're doing a big group, you might want to throw 1 extra rooster in just in case something happens to one of them. You'll have an extra one. So you figure for a group of 24 birds that you could fit in a 24 square foot cage, that would be an 8x6, wouldn't it? Is my math right on that? 6 times? No, that's like 32, isn't it? 32 square feet. Anyway, hopefully you're getting the idea. You can do however many you want or however few you want. Now, what I typically do, I usually keep somewhere around 25 birds. Well, 15 to 25 birds. It varies from time to time. But I keep somewhere between 15 to 25 birds in my hutches. Those are my breeders. So it just depends on, you know, where I'm at as to how many of those are roosters, how many of those are hens. But you can kind of do the math, figure that out. 1 rooster for every 5 to 6 hens, and then 1 extra rooster just to have in case something happens to one of them. Hopefully that kind of answers your question. There's not really a set, like, I would recommend this many breeding groups per hutch or anything like that. It doesn't really matter. It's just however many birds you can fit in there and do that ratio. That's really it. Verna posted a link to the QuailCon at my Shire Farm. You can get the tickets there as well. I don't know how many tickets there are left. Let me open that up and let's see. Are there tickets still left? It looks like there are some tickets still left. So there you go. James, oh wait, Andy says, I agree with Chris. I was just telling someone that earlier today. You're talking about the organic, I think is what you're talking about. Yeah, let me make sure that's not. Nope, that was an older broadcast. I thought somebody was posting a comment on this broadcast. I was going to tell them to, but it was somebody posting a comment on an older broadcast. So let's see. James says, evening, Chris, everybody. I'm still negotiating with CINC House on QuailCon. What? I'm still negotiating with with, I don't know what that means exactly. I'm kind of lost. I'm sorry. You're negotiating with CINC House on QuailCon. I'm not sure. You kind of lost me there. I'm not sure exactly what we're talking about. Hopefully you win the negotiations. You get to go, I guess. I don't know. Verna said, try chewy.com for organic quail food. That's a good idea. I haven't checked that out. Good question. You'll see. Verna says you can keep up to 3 birds per square foot. You could do up to 3 birds per square foot. I kind of like to go by the rule of about 1 per square foot. Maybe a little more than that, but not much more than that. I don't really like to pack them much denser than that. But that's just me. You can do it however you want, whatever works for you. Ed says, yeah, there are tickets left. So, yeah, we figured that out. Clifton from South Mississippi says, appreciate all your videos. I have rabbits, chickens, and quails and enjoy watching your videos. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thanks for watching them. I appreciate that, too. Jam and Mike, good to see you. Thanks for joining. We ran out of comments, so let me take a drink. Maybe we'll get some more comments in to respond to by then. How are we doing here? We got 29 people in so far. We're only 10 minutes in, and the comments section just died all of a sudden. Are we still live? Looks like things are still going. This is unusual. Usually it's usually we're pretty busy with the comments, but yeah, we got some comments coming in now. So yeah, we're still live. We're still going. I was worried that everything aired out and I'd been talking for the last 5 minutes and nobody's hearing me. So Ed wants to know how the garden is doing. The garden's doing pretty well. I've been kind of lazy with it this year, honestly. I've been Oh, okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Got distracted by another comment. I've been kind of lazy with the garden this year. I've just, my work schedule's changed. It's kind of throw everything off. So I'm working 11 o'clock till 7 o'clock, Tuesday through Saturday, which leaves like Sunday is the only day my wife and I have off together. So we usually do something together. And then Monday is another day off. And I got to get some things done on that day. And then the rest of the week, it's a little bit strange because it's, you know, I'm not going into work till 11 o'clock. So I have some time in the mornings, but I don't really want to get out there and do a lot of work before I have to go to work. If that makes sense. And then by the time I get home at night, it's 7:30, almost 8 o'clock at night. And it's time to go to bed before you know it. So I really haven't been able to get out there and do much in the garden this year. Harvested, quite a few green beans. We did that early on. The green beans are probably, they're still producing, but they're about done. And we've got, let's see, I did can those up. So we've got, I don't know, about 20 quarts of green beans canned up so far. Everything else is doing pretty well considering I've kind of just ignored it. Tomatoes are just starting to get ripe. So I'll be harvesting those pretty quick, canning up paste tomatoes and things like that. But all in all, no major issues. Everything seems to be doing pretty good. James says CINC is how in house is commander in chief house. Got it. AKA the wife. Says if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Yeah, whipped. Yeah, no, that's all good. I understand completely. Well, hopefully you're able to make it. We'd like to see you there. Vicky says hello from 101 degree Sacramento Valley, California. My quail are sitting on frozen 2-liter bottles right now. Well, yeah, we were up to 100 degrees yesterday. I didn't do anything special for the quail. They're fine. They're doing just fine. No problems. But yeah, it is hot. I get it. And especially if they're not acclimated to some heat. If you haven't had hot weather for a while, then it's a little bit different. But I don't know. You can definitely put frozen 2-liter bottles in there. I don't mess with doing that myself. They got plenty of ventilation in the cage. They're in the shade, and that's really all I do. Make sure they have fresh water, access to water all the time, and they do fine. Truck 3 Warden says, evening from Wisconsin. Have you ever processed gooseberries? No, I have not. I'm not real familiar with gooseberries. I mean, I've heard of them before, and I've seen people talk about them, but I'm not real familiar with them. I've never actually processed them. Ann wants to know how's everybody doing with this 100 degree plus that what he in the South. I think it's 100 degree plus heat in the South is what it's supposed to say. Well, I'm not necessarily in the South. I'm almost Southern. I always say, Missouri, especially like Southwest Missouri where I'm at, we're almost Southern, but not quite. But as far as weather goes, yeah, it hasn't been over 100, but it's been pretty close. Heat indexes have been over 100 for a while. It's been hot, but I'm pretty well acclimated to it. It's really not been that bad to me. It's hot. You don't want to get out there in the full sun and do a lot, but it could be a lot worse, honestly. Amy says, I also have my birds in an aviary. What do you or does anyone suggest to put on the floor? Well, I don't keep birds in an aviary myself, but I know that So and Tear does. I don't know if she's in here. She could probably talk about what she uses on the floor of the aviary. I don't know how big your aviary is. Wood chips would be a good option. Although, now that I think about it, excuse me, I don't know that. Sorry, I got distracted. I don't know the wood chips would be a great option for summertime because they do tend to compost with all that manure and stuff on them. So that's going to break down, and they're going to produce heat as they're breaking down. So that may not be a great summertime. In fact, I don't know that there's a whole lot of anything you can put on the floor that's not going to break down. If you've got them, I don't know why. I mean, if you've got them on grass, just let them be on grass. I don't know that you need to put anything on the floor. Unless you're packing your aviary really, really tight and it's getting really, really messy in there, then that would be the only concern. But deep litter, I guess, would be the way to go. So you can deep litter. I mean, if it is tight enough that where it's getting pretty messy, then yeah, I would do a deep litter method. You can look that up, deep litter for chickens. There's several different ways to do that. And that's the way I would probably do it with the quail. But again, I don't run them in a aviary. So, oh, Verna's saying the same thing. Katrina does deep litter in her aviary. So there you go. There's somebody that's doing that. So deep litter would probably work pretty well. Like I said, wood chips and things like that are going to break down. They're going to compost. They're going to produce some heat whenever they're composting. But if you're doing deep litter, that shouldn't be as big of an issue because basically the stuff that's composting is on the bottom. So it's not really going to produce enough heat I don't think it'll be an issue. Andy Rabbit says, I'm eating dinner. Carmel C says, can you put quail and Reddit together? Can you put quail and Reddit together? So, I mean, there is a quail forum on Reddit. I mean, there is a quail group on Reddit, but I don't know what you're asking me exactly by putting quail and Reddit together. I don't know if that's a typo. Or what okay. Somebody's asking, what is Reddit? Reddit is an online like forum, basically. Almost like an old school forum, really, in a lot of ways. Carmel, she says bunny. Okay, so a rabbit. Okay, that's what it's supposed to be. Rabbit, not Reddit. Got it. Okay, I'm with you now. So yeah, I wouldn't house them together necessarily. That wouldn't be a good idea. You want to keep them separate. It's not a good idea to put those together. Miss Kitty says, hello from Utah to all. Hello to you, Miss Kitty. Thanks for joining us tonight. Amy says, thank you. They're on a cement pad and there's wire underneath the cage. Okay, so I've got them on a cement pad then. Well, I mean, I guess you could leave them on a cement pad, but what I might do, if it was me, I would probably get some totes that have, maybe not more than that tall, or build something if you need to, of boxes, fairly good size, put some sand in them, give them some sand boxes to get in and dust bath in and lay their eggs in and those kinds of things, get off the cement, off the wire. But I don't know that I'd cover the whole cement floor with something. That just seems like it might be a bad idea, but I don't know. And Vernon posted a link to Katrina, that's Sew and Tear, where she does the aviary. So you can check that out too. Yeah, I got the quail and rabbit thing. That makes sense now. Yeah, well, and that's an option too, Verna. Verna's saying that she has a rabbivary, is what she calls it, I guess, where she has rabbits in cages and quail running loose under them, which you could do, I suppose. That would work just fine. Thing I would worry about is waste from the rabbits getting on the quail, as they're under the cages, but that may not be that big of an issue. So, yeah, you could do that for sure. But as far as housing them together in the same pen where rabbits have free reign and the quail have free reign, I don't think that's a good idea. That would, for a couple of reasons. One is that would basically mean that you're doing like colony style rabbits, which I really don't like the idea of colony style rabbits myself. I've never actually tried it, but so, take that with a grain of salt. But it doesn't allow you to control breeding. I've seen lots of people, and I know there are people out there that do colony rabbits and they do just fine with them. But I've seen lots of people comment on they tried to do colony style rabbits and they'll never do it again. They had all kinds of issues and, with like unplanned breeding and pregnancies and all those kinds of things and other issues too that go along with that. So they went back to housing them individually in cages. First of all, rabbits don't live in colonies in the wild. I mean, they're not pack animals. They are solitary animals. They pretty much only come together for breeding and that's it. So I don't know it's a good idea to house rabbits in a colony. The other thing, if you've got rabbits running loose with your quail, I don't know that I just don't know that they're going to get along. I think you're going to have some issues there. So I may be wrong, but that's just my initial thoughts on it. I really don't know because I haven't tried it and I don't have experience with it. Jennifer's got a question. Says, hello, Chris. Do you by chance own a freeze dryer? No, I do not, but I know Verna does. She freeze dries a whole lot of stuff. I can't quite justify the cost of a freeze dryer myself. And honestly, I've not been super impressed with the things I've tried that have come out of freeze dryers, but I haven't tried a lot, so I don't know. But I can't quite justify the cost. They're just too expensive for me. Scrap 5000 says Tractor Supply has organic game bird feed. I use All Flocks Organic 20% protein pellets. Works great for quail. Chucker need higher protein though for laying eggs. Well, there you go. There's a suggestion. I knew somebody would have a suggestion. I didn't know Tractor Supply carried it. So there you go. Andy says rabbits can and have killed birds, so I would think they may kill quail too. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, yeah, they very well could. I mean, think of that rabbit from Monty Python. That'd be pretty. I don't think your rabbits are going to be that bad, but yes, they could definitely kill a bird. I mean, that would be my concern with them. Daniel says, "Hey Chris, I was wondering if you can make a new video on how to program the Inkbird temperature controller." Yeah, it's actually pretty easy. If you're talking about the one I have, I mean, you just hit. There's like a button on there that says set. You hit it and hold it down. It blinks. You set the high temperature. You set the low temperature. I mean, it's. Let me see if I can. I think I did a video on that a while back. Let me see if I can find it real quick, and I'll post it for you. I don't remember exactly what that had. If I went over, I think I went over all the specifics on it, but I don't remember. It's been a long time. Let's see. There we go. I think this is it right here. This has got to be it. Hang on just one second here. I'm working on getting it. This was quite a while back. When was this posted? I don't remember now. Anyway, it was a long time ago. So, oh no. Hopefully that went through. Did it? Yeah, I did. I've got a little bit of a sticky key there. Let me find where I left off there. Okay, there we go. Back to it. So yeah, I posted a link in the chat there of a video I did on the Inkbird Wi-Fi controlled temperature controller there, and I went through the how to set it, I believe. So you can check that video out and see. And if that doesn't help, then well, let me know, and we'll see if we can shoot another one on it. Maybe. Daniel says quail are the best. They are pretty good. I agree. I like them a lot. Jennifer wants to know from Verna what kind of freeze dryer do you have? It's probably a Harvest Right, isn't it? That's the only one I really know of that's got any kind of the reputable one, I should say. Rick says, "Hey everyone, a little late, but I'm here. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us." Let me see something here real quick. Okay, that's still working. I was making sure. I got a sticky key on my keyboard. I want to make sure it wasn't broken or something. Daniel says Egyptian quails. Okay, you like the Egyptians the best. I actually prefer the jumbo pharaohs myself, but to each his own. Solo FX says the Monty Python rabbit was brutal. Yeah, it was for sure. All right, so is that bass or bass? I don't know if it's bass or bass, but either way, it says, is it okay to have chicken and quails in the same room but different cages? It is okay if you keep them separate in separate cages. There's a slight risk. There are some things that chickens can carry that can affect quail. So chickens could be a carrier of it, not display any symptoms, not have any issues with it. Quail could catch it and it could, negatively affect them, could even cause death. There's a few things like that, but I don't know how big of a concern that is. So you could keep them, yes, in the same basic area, but caged separately. You probably don't want to let them run together, though, because, well, chickens are brutal. I mean, they'll kill anything that's smaller than them, small enough, and quail are pretty small. I would be afraid that they would kill the quail and try to eat them. But yeah, they're, like I said, minor concern with some disease, being able, but I don't know how big of an issue that is. So yeah, you could keep them in the same room for sure. Brian says, should I take out my baby quail outside with the other? Oh, when? I think it is. When should I take out my baby quail outside with the other? I just shot a video and did that a couple of weeks ago. It depends a little bit on your temperature and your when your baby quail are ready to go outside, they can go in with the other ones. Now, try to get them in there before they hit like 5-6 weeks old. When they get to that age, they're looked at as more mature birds by the existing flock, and there's going to be some fighting, trying to establish a pecking order, that kind of stuff that goes on. But when you move them in at like 2-3 weeks old, somewhere right around in there, assuming that you're acclimated to the temperature, that you're not getting down in the like 30s at night or something, you may need to give them a little bit longer if that's the case. But assuming they're acclimated temperatures, ready to go outside at 2 weeks is about when I do mine in the summer, usually 2 to 2.5 weeks. They go right into the flock, no problems whatsoever. It's a great time to do it. It's a great way to introduce new breeders into your program because you just raise them up when they get 2.5 weeks ready to go outside. You just throw them in the cage with your existing birds and they grow up and become adult birds in there, no problems whatsoever. But if you do wait until they hit closer to sexual maturity, definitely by 6 to 7 weeks old, they're going to get picked on. They're going to get beat up a little bit as they try to establish a pecking order because they see them as rival birds, basically. But as babies, they don't seem to mind at all. I've never had any issues doing it that way. Daniel Davis, sorry, I keep reading your name wrong, says, I have the same. It's a mixture from my shire. That's the jumbo Egyptians is what you have, right? So, yeah, they're interesting birds for sure. I just prefer the jumbo pharaohs myself, but, that's just personal opinion. Rick says, to scrap 5,000 farmers, co-op feed is cheaper than Tractor Supply, and it's about the same protein. Yeah, there's an option there. If you have a local feed mill, I should say, even local feed stores, check with them and see what they can get for you. Because even if they don't necessarily carry it all the time, they may be able to order it in for you, and it's probably going to be cheaper than Tractor Supply. Verna says to make sure, if you're going to keep chickens and quail together, make sure the chickens cannot get on top of the quail cages. That's a good suggestion. Child of God says, came in a little bit late today, was feeding my quail. And that's all good. We're glad to have you here either way. Brian says, what happens if my adult quail start pecking the baby quail? I've never had that happen. I mean, if they do, it'd probably be bad, but I've never had that happen. I always introduce my baby quail at 2.5 to 3 weeks old, somewhere right around in there, put them in with my adults. I've never had them get beat up. It's never happened. So, I mean, it could be an anomaly. I mean, maybe you have an aggressive bird that just picks on everything that comes in, but it's never been an issue for me. So I wouldn't worry about it if I were you. If they do start picking on the babies, depends on how bad it is. I mean, watch them for a few days, or if they're really beating them up, then you may have to pull them out, or identify whichever one is the mean aggressive bird and just eat it, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. But it's never happened, so I wouldn't worry about it if it were me. Verna says, put the baby quail in a brooder or separate the mother and her babies. So you probably don't. I don't know. I'm not sure what we're talking about, Verna. What we're responding to there, I'm kind of lost on. Are you talking about with the adult quail pecking on the babies? Then you're saying in response to that, put the baby quail in the brooder or separate the mother and her babies. I doubt the mother is. You're not going to know who the mother is. I mean, it doesn't. I'm lost. I think I'm confused. So I'm going to let that go because I'm not sure what we're talking about. Maybe it was simpler and I'm just making it more complex. Andy Rabbit says, I had some quail in the rabbit shed next to the rabbit. I had 2 quails on each side of the cage, and they had their. Sorry, I got distracted by the dog. He jumped. I had some quail in the rabbit shed next to a rabbit. I had 2 quails on each side of the cage. They had their heads through the bars dead. I think the rabbit may have laid on the quails. The rabbit, okay. So do you think the rabbit laid on the quail so they were in the same cage? Really? Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't. That doesn't surprise me necessarily, but interesting. Um, Bob Cole says, "Howdy. I didn't lock down until day 16 yesterday. Turned up humidity from 42 to 62. No movement. You think okay? Yeah, probably okay. Until day 16 yesterday. Yeah, yesterday was day 16. Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't worry about it. You're still well within the range, and you're not usually going to see a lot of movement or anything. I very seldom, if ever, see movement in the eggs, and just all of a sudden they start hatching. So it's about the time you think that nothing's going to hatch that everything starts hatching. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that at all. You're right on track. Andy says, not sure, but the rabbit under the quail passed away the other day. Oh, interesting. I don't know if that's any relation to it being under the quail. It doesn't make, I don't think there would be any reason for that. That doesn't make any sense right offhand, but who knows? I mean, if just one rabbit, I mean, animals die from time to time. What are you going to do, right? Daniel Davis says, hope to see everyone at QuailCon. Well, I hope to see you guys there too. Clifton wants to know, how are the PVC frames holding up? They're doing pretty good, really. No issues so far. They're holding up just fine. Now, that's probably a fairly temporary solution for me. I'll probably build out something a little bit better for them in the long term, but it's working just fine right now. No issues. I did get a lot of comments on that video saying that they were worried about like PVC getting brittle over time in the sun. I've had some stuff like some PVC outside for years, and it's doing just fine. I mean, I used it for hoop house frames, and it's fine. It's not brittle. It did mold. So like I had it all bent over, and the heat of the sun made it permanently bent over like that. But it's not, it didn't get brittle or anything like that. So I'm not too worried about it. I think it's going to work just fine. These are 2-inch PVC, Schedule 40. So it's pretty thick. It's pretty sturdy stuff. But it's working just fine right now. Oh, Bob says my audio is jumpy. Really? Maybe I'm moving too far away, not talking loud enough. Let's see if I can move that mic a little bit closer. Maybe that'll help. Hopefully that helps. Well, S.O. Swanson says it's not jumpy on that end, so maybe it could be yeah, you may have to refresh your page. Could be. Everybody else is saying it sounds good. What did I miss something? Scrap 5000 has a sad face. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Did I? Hopefully it wasn't something I said. Who knows? Amy says, my first 2.5-week-old quail were just put in with the adults yesterday. When we first put them in, the adults attacked them. But by the end of the day, everything was fine. Really? I've never had my birds attack them. But yeah, like you said, everything was fine by the end of the day, but yeah, but I've never had them attack them, period. I put them in there and they just ignore them. It's like they're not even there. They just take, in fact, the last time, and I talked about this in the video I did posted just a week or two ago, when I moved my baby quail out of the brooder into the hutch with the adults. If anything, I had a baby bird, and this little bitty tiny bird go after one of the great big adult roosters, go after him like pecking like crazy. And that rooster just turned and ran away from it. Like it was scared of that bird. It was the funniest thing ever. I wish I had it on film. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised you had any problems at all. But like you said, by the end of the day, everything was fine. They let him go. So no problems. S.O. Swanson says, I love when Chris says, find the aggressive quail and eat it. Yeah, that's my approach to aggressive birds. I mean, check what you're doing. Make sure it's not something that you're doing that's causing the aggression. You're not moving them around a whole lot. You're not, keeping them too cramped in a space or something like that. But for the most part, if I get aggressive birds, I just eat them. Verna says, yes, I took it as babies that a bird had hatched. Oh, when you were saying take the babies, okay, gotcha. I understand. Daniel says, I use vinegar and water mixed when I move new quail in with old quail, spray them all so they can smell the same. I've heard of that before. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I haven't actually tried it. So that may be a good solution, but it doesn't make any sense to me. I didn't think birds had much of a, if any, sense of smell. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. That may be my problem. It just doesn't make any sense why that would work. But heck, if it works, it works. Try it out and see. In the Woods says, I have 4-month-old quail hen that hasn't laid yet. All her hatchmates have been laying since 6 to 7 weeks. Is there still a chance she'll start laying? Yeah, I'm kind of curious. How do you know that one bird has not started laying yet? I mean, if they're all in the same hutch, how do you know it's that one bird that's not laying? I'm kind of curious of that. But yeah, I mean, there's still definitely a chance that she'll start laying. Rick says, put my quail eggs in lockdown yesterday. Hope all is all right. I hope it is too. Good luck with your hatch. I've got some eggs in the incubator right now, but they're just a couple of days in, so we're a ways from lockdown on them. Jacob says, hey, just made it. I really liked your video on the Do More cages. I thought about getting some myself and was helpful video. Do you think they could be used for quail? Maybe finer mesh on the bottom. Yeah, I think you'd have to replace the bottom. Yeah, I think you would have to replace the bottom for them to be used for quail. I don't know that they'd make great quail cages, honestly. But, you could use them. You just have to modify them a little bit. There has been some feedback from some people on those cages that have tried those before and said over time that they had some problems with them. They had to reinforce them with like some J-hooks and things like that. So, that may be an issue. I don't know that that's that big of a deal, honestly. But so far, they're holding up pretty good for me. They seem to be pretty sturdy, and they seem to be working pretty well. Don says, we used PVC for the dog pen gates about 15 years ago. One piece just broke this spring. So, yeah, they lasted for a long time, huh? Verna says she put hers in lockdown yesterday, too. So you're hatching buddies with Rick. Awesome. Well, hopefully you both have great hatches. And Bob says that you refreshed and all is all right in the world. Well, good. I'm glad. And look, Bob's got birds in lockdown too. Andy says, no, Chris, they were in different cages. The quail put their heads through the wire, and I think the rabbit may have laid on the quail's heads. The quail were in the middle of two rabbits. Well, they could have. Okay, that makes sense. I get it. And also, I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot to spook a rabbit. And what I've noticed with rabbits in cages, when they get spooked, they just run laps around the cage super fast. I mean, if a quail's got his head through there, spooks the rabbit, and the rabbit goes running laps, wouldn't take much to, almost take that rabbit or that quail's head off. So that could be the issue too. Verna says that in the woods, I would vent sex that bird and see if it was a hen. Well, that's a thought too. It may not be a hen. You may just think it's a hen, but I'm still curious. How do you know it's that one bird that's not laying eggs? That's the part that gets me. Amy says that was the first time my older ones attacked my babies. Yeah, it's never happened with me. I'm kind of surprised to hear it at all, but so Brian wants to know how to tell the difference of a female quail and a male quail. Depends a little bit on what kind of birds you have. Let's see, you're raising Egyptians, and I can't remember on the Egyptians. The Egyptians are not feather sexable. I don't believe so. Let's take a look. Let me make sure I know which ones they are. I don't remember. I got to look up the Egyptian quail. I don't have time to do that right here. Somebody else raising Egyptian quail could tell me if I'm wrong. I may get them mixed up because I don't really pay attention to all those different colors. I get them. I kind of forget from time to time. But there's two different ways basically to sex your quail. One is to feather sex them if they're feather sexable. So like with the jumbo pharaohs, with some of the Italians, there's several different kinds of quail that are feather sexable. With the jumbo pharaohs, you can tell by their chest. The females have a speckled brown speckled. It's like a white chest with brown specks on it, and the roosters have more of a red color to their chest, a rusty red color on their chest. So you can look at them and tell that's a rooster, that's a hen. It's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. If your birds, and I don't remember Egyptians specifically if they can be feather sexed or not, but if your birds are not feather sexable, then you have to wait till they get to be sexually mature. Wait till you get in the breeding season, make sure the roosters are crowing, the hens are laying eggs, and then you have to vent sex them. So I've got a video on that as well I can post. Give me just a second. I'll look that one up for you on how to sex your quail. Give me just 1 second. I should be able to find this one pretty quick. There we go. There's the video. Link address. Did that post? It did. Good. There you go. So, where was I? There we go. So, okay, so Brian, I think you were the one that said you were raising Egyptian quail. I may get that backwards, but I just posted a link to the video I've got on 3 ways to sex your quail. So you can watch that video, get a little bit more of a visual experience, because vent sexing them, it's not terribly difficult, but it's a little bit hard for me to explain. Basically, you're going to take the bird, turn it over, look down towards the vent. The males, again, you have to do this when they're in breeding season and old enough to be sexually mature, but the males will have a slight bulge on the bottom side of their vent. You kind of push on that a little bit and you'll get foam that comes out of the vent itself. And you'll be able to tell that way. Scrap 5000 says, sorry, was saying that since I live in New York City, there are not many co-op feed places around, and hence the sad face. Okay, I get it. That makes sense. Yeah, that's unfortunate because, feed mills and stuff like that are the best. We don't have a whole lot of co-op feed places, but we do have feed mills around here, and that they're the best place to get your quail feed for sure. All your animal feed for that matter. Verna says, I put them in a large tote of sand, letting them have a sand bath. Then towards dusk, I put them in the cages. They have already played together. Well, there you go. You put them all basically you take all your birds, put them in a new location with a sandbox, and then put them in the cage together at night. That makes sense. That seems like a good way to do it too. In the Woods says, I watch them. Some might say too much, but I've seen everyone else's eggs, and they are very distinguishable. I know for a fact that it's this one hen. Okay, well, I guess maybe you're watching them too much. I don't know. I've always heard that the bird's eggs are distinguishable, but honestly, I've never been able to identify like which bird has laid which egg. Of course, I don't spend that much time trying to do it. But yeah, there's still a chance, but I would check and see, is that actually a hen? Is it not maybe a rooster and just looks like a hen? It's happened before. Big Haas Gun 74 says, I have eggs in lockdown as well. Started hatching yesterday. Well, awesome. Brian says, no, Coturnix quail. Well, Egyptians are a type of Coturnix quail. So Coturnix, there's a lot of different strains, a lot of different color strains, color patterns. So if you're raising just like the Jumbo Pharaoh, Jumbo Meat Maker, Jumbo Wild, they're all the same bird. They're just different names for the same one. If you're raising that kind of Coturnix quail, then yeah, they're feather sexable, or you can vent sex them. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Check out my video link. It'll show you how to do it, and you can kind of watch that and get a better idea, I think. Sujek says, my neighbor have a dog that barks quite a bit. Will this be a problem? And when I get rabbits? No, the rabbits seem to kind of ignore that. It doesn't bother my rabbits at all. We got dogs on both sides of us that are barking all the time. If you've watched any of my recent videos, we got the yippiest dog in the world living right next door to me, and you can hear it in almost every one of my videos. It doesn't bother the rabbits at all. Let's see, is that Bass? I'm going to call you Bass. I don't know if it's Bass or Bass, but Bass says, hey, Chris, are you still using a little giant incubator? Yes, I am. It still works, so I still use it. I've thought about getting a new one, but I don't see any reason to. I'm still getting good hatch rates. It still works. And it hatches as many as I need to hatch out. And anytime I have a problem, they just send me a replacement part, so I just keep using it. It works great. Andy says, Don, you should answer this one about sexing Egyptians. Yeah. Let's see. I thought you had said you had Egyptians, but maybe I'm mixing you up with somebody else. Not you, Andy, but Brian, I think it was. I'm not sure. Yeah, Verna's saying the same thing, that animals will climatize to noise. Yeah, for the most part, they will. I agree. And then Don says, Andy Rabbit, I already did. It said it was just a red pharaoh and easily feather sexed. Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. I didn't see your answer either. I missed it for some reason, but thank you for jumping in with that. I appreciate it. I couldn't remember. I googled it, but then yeah, they look pretty much Egyptians. This is the Myshire farm page for it. Let me, as soon as that pulls up, but the picture looks a lot like a jumbo pharaoh, so I think that they would probably be feather sexable as well. Yes, they are feather sexable by chest feathers at 3 weeks old. There you go. Same way you would like jumbo pharaohs or jumbo meat makers, any of those. Andy Rabbit says, I don't have any Egyptians yet. No, I don't either. But Sue Jack wants to know how the garden's doing. I've had a couple of questions about that. I should do a video on it, huh? It's doing pretty good. I mean, I've got one tomato plant. Okay, so with my tomatoes, my beefsteaks didn't do well this year, and I'm not sure why, but honestly, I just, like I said, I've been kind of lazy and I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention. I've just let what grow, and doing my best to try to motivate myself to get out there and harvest from it more. But everything else is doing great. I lost one of my beefsteak tomatoes completely, and the other one, it's only like this tall. I mean, it produced a tomato. We got a tomato off of it, but that may be the only one. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look, it's not dying, but it's not growing. It's not doing anything. All the paste tomatoes, for the most part, doing great. One tomato on the end, it's got some blight issues. It's starting to suffer from that. But everything else is doing really, really well. Everything else is growing great. I just got to get out there and harvest it. Carmel C says, question, speckled quail. How do I tell which one is male versus female? Well, that seems to be kind of the common question today. I don't know what speckled quail is. That's new to me. Is that a name that you made up, or is that sounds smart? Like, I don't mean it that way. Speckled quail, a specific type of quail? Is that a bobwhite quail? Mexican speckled quail? Looks like a type of bobwhite. Yeah, they're native. They're a color mutation of a native northern bobwhite. I'm not sure on that one, honestly. I would think, I mean, you'd have to look that up because I don't raise bobwhite, so I'm not real sure about that. If I got it wrong, if I'm not right, then let me know and I'll see if I can go into it. But I did, again, I posted a link on my video on how to feather sex or how to sex quail. There's 3 different ways you can do that, but it's focused on Coturnix quail. So if you don't have Coturnix and you've got bobwhites, that may not apply. Bob says LG sent me Little Giant sent me a new control unit for my incubator that went crazy and jumped to 107 degrees. Did get a Brisnia though, and that's what I'm using for this group in lockdown. Yeah, Little Giant, it's Miller Manufacturing is the company that makes Little Giant, but their customer service is fantastic. So if you have problems with your incubator and you've got a Little Giant incubator, call them up. They'll try to troubleshoot it with you. If they have to, they'll send you a brand new, control unit or heater or whatever it is that you're having problems with. And send it free. They don't ask like, how long have you had it? Nothing. They just send it to you. They're great. Don says, I have jumbo pharaohs and jumbo Egyptians both. So they're both feather sexable, very similar, aren't they? Gotcha. Scrap 5000 says, Chris, not sure why this comment isn't displaying for you. Trying again. I finally got a replacement freezer. Can't wait to fill it with rabbits, quail, and especially a pig being raised organically. Yeah, that's nice to have a new freezer, huh? I don't know why it didn't display for me either. Maybe I just missed it. Who knows? Maybe it displayed and I just skipped over it for some reason. That happens sometimes. But yeah, congratulations on the new freezer. Get it filled up. Don says, I ordered jumbo pharaoh eggs last fall and some Egyptians hatched out too. So that's where you got your Egyptians from. Okay, that makes sense. Scraps says continued. Filling your freezer also with supermarket pork is so full of poison, including plastics fed to the pigs. Yuck. Yeah, that doesn't sound good at all. I didn't know that. We buy bacon. Other than that, we don't eat a lot of pork, but I do like those pork tenderloins every once in a while. Maybe I'll have to rethink that. I don't know. David says we have 15 incubations with our Little Giant. Oh, we've had We have had 15 incubations with our little giant since 2022-02. So February of 02, you've done 15 incubations with. Well, that's good. Hopefully it's working well for you too. Carmel says some may call it sparkly too, instead of speckled, I think is what you're saying. So I'm not sure if those are just, well, Verna's saying you have to vent sex them, but I'm not sure what you're referring to as sparkly or speckled. I don't know if that's, like I said, bob white or a Coturnix. Sujak says, curiously, here in Indiana, you need to have a license to raid bobwhite quail. Not sure why. Any input? Yeah, because they're a native bird. That's why. And that sounds, I didn't mean that to sound the way it did. It sounded very rude, didn't it? No, but you'll need a permit for any kind of native animal. If you want to keep a native wild animal, you have to have a permit for it. And that's really just to keep people from, depleting the population of them in the wild by capturing them and trying to raise them in captivity. But that's exactly why. And Andy's saying the same thing. Bobwhites can be found in the wild. And Verna's saying the same thing because they're a native bird. Yeah, that's pretty standard. Coturnix are not a native bird, so you don't need a permit for those because they're raised as like livestock or whatever. But if you want to raise any kind of native animal, whether that be a fox squirrel, a bobwhite, anything like that, you need a permit to do it. David says, are Jumbo Egyptian, Jumbo Pharaoh, and Jumbo Wild the same? Jumbo Pharaoh and Jumbo Wild are the same thing, but Egyptians are slightly different. They look very similar. I had to look them up. They look very similar to a Jumbo Pharaoh, but they are slightly different. Just a little bit of a different color strain. Looks like they're just lighter colored, honestly. Not much. They look almost identical. So maybe they are the same thing, and I just didn't realize that was what they were being called now. Andy's saying the same thing. You got to have a permit for wildlife. Yep. Okay. So there's Verna explaining it a little bit more. Egyptians are the only ones different. They are the redheaded stepchild of the wild Pharaoh browns. There you go. Sujak says, interesting. I didn't think there would be too much of a problem for local quail. Talking about yeah, okay. So Rick's saying the same thing. He says, yeah, in Missouri, which I live in Missouri, we have to have a license too. They say it's because they're native to the U.S. Coturnix, you do not have to have a license because they're not a native bird, right? Bob wants to know from David, what model do you have? He has an 11300 model. I think that's the Brisnia incubator, right? How are we doing on time? Oh my goodness, time flies, doesn't it? We're almost out. We got about 10 minutes left. Sujak says, thank you all. Learning something new every day. Yep, absolutely. I've kind of, I did pay attention to the different color strains for a long time, but I've kind of gotten to where I just don't care anymore. I shouldn't say I don't care. They're cool. They're kind of neat. But I like the Jumbo Pharaoh, Jumbo Meat Maker. I raise them for meat and egg production. And to my opinion, those are the best ones to do that with. So I don't really pay attention to much of any of the other color strains. There's been a lot of new ones that have come out in the last couple of years too. S.O. Swanson says Egyptians have the roux gene, which is where the brown is more reddish. That makes sense. I actually have heard that before. I knew that actually, but I'd forgotten. David says, not sure I'll go AFK in a moment and get back to you. Okay. Talking about, he'll go find out what model. Lester says Egyptian is the Pharaoh with the roux red gene. Reddish color replaces the black. Interesting. Oh, wait a minute. That's not what David was responding to. I don't know what David was responding to exactly, but anyway, I get lost. But so Bob posted his model number. It's a 11300. Andy Rabbit says, as a guy told me at the swap meet, they're just lighter brown. He didn't know what Egyptians were. Ben says, some great chat and info. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, I agree. Thank you to everyone. It's always nice that, I don't pretend to know everything. I don't even claim to know everything. And whenever there's a question that comes up that I can't answer, there's almost always somebody else in here that knows the answer to that and can speak to it for us. And I do appreciate that. Scrap 5000 says, speaking of pork, I love pork too, especially bacon. Does anyone else cure and smoke their own bacon? It's so easy. Definitely try. You'll never go back to supermarket bacon. Yeah, if I had pigs, I would do that probably, but I haven't done it actually. I I bought a pig a couple of years ago. I went in with somebody else. We bought a farm raised pig and took it to a processor, had it processed, and it just wasn't good. It wasn't very good at all. And I don't know if that was the way it was raised, if it was the processor. I don't know what the issue was, but it just wasn't very good. So we haven't done it again. Sujak says, Scrap, I have a friend that takes a whole pork belly and put it in the smoker for a long time, I think 12 to 14 hours. Best thing ever. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Andy Rabbit says bacon with a big, strip of bacon and a face with the tongue sticking out smiling. Yep, I like bacon. Everybody likes bacon, right? Amy says, I have two types of Jumbo Blue Ridge and some sold as Jumbo Caternix. They look the same to me. Blue Ridge just seem a little more aggressive. Is it okay to crossbreed them? Yeah, if they're Caternix, I don't know what the Blue Ridge are either. That's a new one to me. Let me check something out here. Yeah, they do look like Jumbo Caternix, don't they? That may just be another name they're calling them. I don't know. Is it the name of the farm maybe that they come from? I see Blue Ridge Jumbo Quail, Blue Ridge Beef Quail with bone grain. I don't know. Blue Ridge Raw Frozen Dog and Cat. There's a whole bunch of Blue Ridge stuff. So I wonder if that's just the name. Now, you could definitely crossbreed them. Now, if they're super aggressive, I don't know that I'd want to. If they're aggressive, I personally believe that aggression can be a genetic trait and can be bred into and out of them to an extent. I mean, there's other things that can cause aggression too, but if they're aggressive and more aggressive than your other birds, you may not want to crossbreed them with your others, but you could. Yeah, I mean, they'll crossbreed and produce offspring. I mean, it'll work. Ted says, are you still using the Little Giant? Yeah, that's actually the second time I've been asked that today too. Yeah, I still use a Little Giant incubator. It works great. I still get good hatches out of it. It's anytime I have an issue, their customer service is fantastic. They send me a new part to fix whatever it is that's wrong with it. So I still use it. It still works. So I haven't bothered with buying a new one. Oh, so Dawn is saying the same thing. I looked it up, and the Blue Ridge is the name of the farm they come from. And Amy says, oh, gotcha, I didn't get them from that farm. Well, whoever you got them from probably originally got them from that farm, so doesn't know any different, just calls them Blue Ridge for some reason. Scrap 5000 says, Chris, sorry to hear about the bad tasting pig. You can buy a pork belly and cure it and smoke it yourself. You'll dig it the most. I may try it out. I don't know. Don says, the article says it's the name they call the Caternix, but I would not want to breed aggression into my quail. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. S.O. Swanson says, Chris, Blue Ridge was just the Caternix name by Sadie Girl Farms. She named it after her mountains. Looks standard to me. Yeah, that's kind of what I saw too. The pictures look standard, and those are the links I saw with Sadie Girl Farms. So makes sense. Amy says, I'm definitely taking out the bullies. They aren't horrible, just more aggressive. Yeah, hopefully you can get them to, sometimes you get just aggressive lines of birds and, like what you're doing, selective breeding, I guess. And you can, I believe, breed that out of them. Let's see. How are we doing? Oh, right at time to finish it up. Carmel says, hey, Max, to the doggy. Yeah, he just came in and laid down here. Hop up here, Max. Come here. Come here. Say hi. I don't know if you guys you can't see him yet. Can you? Hop up here. Come on, right up here. Come on. There you go. There he is. Say hi. He doesn't have any idea there's a camera on, but there you go. Thank you. Okay, go on. Off. There you go. Good boy. All right. Child of God says, I have 2 roosters and 9 hens, not quite 8 weeks old, not laying eggs yet. What age did you expect eggs? Well, right about now. Right at 8 weeks old, or not quite 8 weeks old. So anytime now, 8 weeks old is a pretty good. Sometimes they'll lay a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later, but you should start getting eggs at any time. So just give them a little bit of time as long as you got enough light. If they're outside right now, it's summertime, they've got enough light. They need 14 hours a day. Don't be moving them around a lot from one cage to the other. That stresses them out. That'll delay egg laying. Put them in have them in a cage, leave them alone, give them some time. They'll start laying probably anytime. S.S. Swanson says the aggressive birds taste good. Yes, they do. Sue Jack says, how old is Max? He's about 6 years old, roughly, somewhere right around in there, about middle age, I guess. All right. Bob says, thanks for the great chat, everyone. Tap the like button, please. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, we got 38 likes in here, so pretty good. Noah says, no, I think it is. No. N-O-E, is that no? Am I pronouncing that right? Hopefully. It says, first time incubating, just went on lockdown on Wednesday. If I get any quails to hatch, how long do I leave the quail in the incubator? You can leave them in there up to 72 hours, but I would suggest getting them out after about 24. What you'll find that'll happen is you'll have like a whole bunch of them that'll hatch all at once. Resist the temptation to just dive in there as soon as they start hatching. Wait, at least 24 hours. Let them all dry out and get all fluffy. Open the incubator up. Get all the ones that have hatched out as quick as you can that are dry and fluffy. If there's any that are still wet, leave them in there. But get all the dry, fluffy ones out and then close the incubator back up and give it some more time. You'll have some more stragglers hatch over the next 2-3 days probably. And you say if you get any to hatch, you probably will. Good luck with your hatch, but I'm sure you'll get some to hatch. All right. Amy says, thank you all for your information and suggestions. I appreciate Chris and all of you. Well, we appreciate you too. Thanks for asking questions. All right, looks like we're all wrapping up, and it's time for me to wrap up too. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. I do appreciate it as always. Feel a little, I don't know, jumbled up. It's a little, kind of hard to get these live broadcasts going. I get home from work, and I got about 20 minutes before I got to get on a live broadcast. So it's a little tricky, but it's working. I was a little bit jumpy or a little bit off my game today, I think, but we'll get back on. So anyway, thanks again for joining me tonight, guys. We'll see you guys next week. At this point, I don't see any reason why I can't be here next Thursday. So we'll look to see you next Thursday. And as always, God bless. Good night.